You started using auto layout, but you're finding yourself often stuck, struggling to move elements where you want them to be. Auto layout has a mind of its own, but it's a very powerful Figma feature to create fast, pixel-perfect and responsive designs. I have helped countless students master auto layout, and in this video, we're going to practice using practical UI elements like navigation and cards to learn everything you need about auto layout. If you stick with me till the end, I will even show you a hidden option that will allow you to place things exactly where you want within an auto layout. So first, what is auto layout? It's very critical that you understand what it is so that you can use it effectively. If you're familiar with front-end development or web development, Figma's auto layout is built on the concept of Flexbox in CSS. To see that for yourself, if you select any element that has auto layout on it and you turn on your dev mode and you inspect it, you will see in its layout, it has properties that are flex properties, like display inline flex and align items. This is the same code that developers use to code front-end CSS with Flexbox. So whether it's Flexbox or Figma auto layout, what does this mean? When you create an auto layout, what you're actually doing is you're creating a container to wrap your elements. All your items start living within a container, and that's what allows you to create an auto layout for them, to place them exactly where you want in relationship to the container. So when do we use auto layout? Use auto layout only when you have more than one item that you need to place within a container. Because once you create auto layout, you are defining rules for the elements or the items within the container. So it's important that you want these elements to be connected. If you simply randomly place auto layout on things that don't need auto layout, you will find yourself struggling to move them. You may have heard people say that you should add auto layout even to a simple text element, but that's not necessarily correct. When a text element is selected, Figma already has layout options that are kind of similar to auto layout. Because these layout options already exist for text in Figma, you don't need to place auto layout just on text. If you wanted background for your text, that will make it two elements, not just one, right? Because a background counts as another element for your design. That's when adding auto layout may be worthwhile, because then you have a relationship between the text and the visible background. So now let's get to the how. How do we use auto layout? Let's start by creating a very simple tag component that you can add to your UI elements. So I will start with the text. I will click T for text and I will start typing. Let's call it tag label. And I will click outside of it for the text widget to be selected. And now to add auto layout, I have multiple options to do this. One thing is I can right click and click add auto layout from the menu. But the quickest way to do this, because you're gonna need to do it very often, you'd better learn that shortcut. Shift A, both for Mac and Windows, will add auto layout to my text. And how do you know this immediately? Because if you look right here in my property panel, a frame was automatically added to my text. So now my text lives within a frame, and you can see this icon of auto layout, which is like two lines next to each other, two rectangles next to each other, and my tag lives within them. So remember, this is feeding back into the concept. Auto layout is adding a container around the elements that I select. And why do we want an auto layout? Because we want this tag to be responsive. We want it to grow and change along with our text. How do we do this? First of all, let's rename our frame. If you come here to the property panel, we're no longer just in a layout. You can see the auto layout menu, and down here are all the options that we're gonna look at together. We will explore each one of these elements. So you will see by default, Figma applied a hug on my width. What that means is my container, my parent container, will always hug my text. So to know which properties you're looking at, always remember there's a parent and there's an item inside that parent. Right now, my tag is selected, so we're dealing with the parent container. And the width for it by default is always a hug. Similarly, for the height, Figma has applied a hug on it. To see this more visibly, let's add a color for our tag. And I want to change this text, so I'm going to remove all this stuff. I'll leave it as label. If I delete this, Figma resized with my tag because my parent container is set to always hug my content. Let's look at all the different properties available to us within an auto layout. The second row that you see is alignment. And in order to see alignment and to see how things behave, we need more items within an auto layout container. So let's create that really quickly. To duplicate this tag, with it selected, I'm going to click Command D on a Mac, Control D on a window. I will do that a few times. And now I'm going to select all of these. So if you click and drag, add auto layout, we also have more layout options, which allows us to suggest an auto layout. In a previous tutorial, I showed you how to go for that Figma default that generally suggests an auto layout for you. And most of the time, it does a really good job. So if you're getting started, it's a good place to do that. But not for this tutorial because we're diving deep this time. So we're going to go with the shortcut Shift A. That's always my favorite method. And to have more clarity, I'm going to change the name of this container and we're going to call it tags container. Now we have a parent for all the tags. And you can see Figma has set the auto layout default to a horizontal layout. But I do have other layout options. The second option that I have is the vertical layout. And the moment I click that, Figma takes all the elements within the container and arranges them vertically. This way they go back to horizontal. Now what about the wrap option? The wrap options allows you to make things respond differently based on the width that you set for your container. So if I make my width wider, it can fit 2 labels. If I need it to be more narrow, it will fit the 4 labels. If I go all the way, it can fit how many ever I can within that fixed width. Now, when is this wrap option useful? When you want your frame to respond differently on different devices. Let's look at a more realistic example for the wrap option. This screen here we created in an iOS app. In the previous tutorial, we needed the screen to be just available on an iPhone. But what if we wanted to apply the same design on an iPad and a desktop? That's when we would use the wrap option. So I'm going to click Option Drag to have the same container, and we're going to take it to our iPad and resize it. So the first step that we would do is make the container as big as the device that we want. And you can see as I adjust the width of the container, my cards are resizing because it has the wrap option. But in the case of the iPad, I want all these elements to be centered. We did the same thing on a Mac here. You will see as we resize the container, these cards will shuffle. That's where the wrap option is super helpful for responsive design. The space in between, or the gap, is the spacing between the elements within this container. Do you see while hovering on it, I can reduce this spacing. I can also do this from the property panel right here. If I hover on this vertical gap icon, I would be able to scroll horizontally and change this space. But very often, to be honest, I just come here and I type a number because I often want that gap to be a valid number that's often a variable. When you're doing advanced designing, these numbers are already set for you and your developers. We also have the option to add padding, vertical and horizontal padding. And anytime you're not sure what is an icon in Figma, you always hover on it and wait for a second, the tooltip will appear and you will see what that is. So this is my horizontal padding, which means the space around the container. Let's add some. I'm going to add 16 again. And top and bottom, this is my vertical padding. I am going to add a little more so we can have a distinction. I've added 24. And to see all these things on my tag container, I'm going to add a fill to it. Let's also give it some corner radius of 10. In this area here, you will see the option to align. How do you want to align items within your container? Right now, my tags are aligned left. They start at the left of my container. However, they're aligned to the center vertically. If I were to bring them up, they will move to the top of my container. But this is not visible to you right now because the height of my container is hugging those tags. The only way we can align things differently is if we change the height to become fixed. Do you see, once I stretched my container, my height moved from hug to fixed. You don't even have to set it to fixed. If you were to stretch it, automatically Figma will move from hug to fix. And now, if I want to center my tags vertically, I will click this and they will come to the center of my container's height. I can also align them to the very bottom. Now, the same thing applies horizontally, but remember, right now we have a hug. If we change our width to a fixed width, we can easily center our tags within the container, within the parent container. We can right align them or we can left align them. Now that we understood the basic concepts and properties available to us through auto layout, let's dig into deeper practical examples that you need in your designs so we can explore auto layout better and deeper with more settings when you're actually working in it in real components. So I want us to create right now this vertical navigation and horizontal navigation. It's actually the same thing, as you can guess. We just changed the layout for it. I'm going to start on a dark background so that you can see my text. I will start with a text element and I will give it a name. Let's call it label for now, similarly to what we've done before. And we need an icon. To create an icon quickly, there are multiple plugins. You may have your own, but I find Iconify a really nice plugin that we can use. And with Iconify, you select the icon and then you import it as a component. So do you see when it comes here, it's an actual component. I don't want to use the component. I'm just going to click Option Drag to get an instance of the component. You never want to use a component within your actual design. Components should be separate. Always use an instance so that if you make a change on the component, it reflects in all your instances. I'm going to select both of them. Shift click selects them both. I will click Shift A. Now I have an auto layout. And you see they're still misaligned, but that can be very easily fixed by centering them. I want them to be left aligned, but centered vertically. So this is my first navigation. So I'm going to call it Navigation tab. And now, rather than repeating this process for every label and icon, I'm going to click Command D, and Figma moved it very far away. I'm just going to bring it closer. Rather than let Figma create another tab somewhere else very far away, let me create a parent auto layout on these two tabs. So I'm going to select both of them and once again click Shift A. And now I have this vertical navigation component with two tabs. So I will go back, select one of the tabs, click Command D again, and I need 4 of them. And I will call this parent frame navigation. And maybe the rest of them can be just tabs. So actually, let me show you a quick renaming trick. I'm going to select all 4 of them. And if I click Command R, I will have bulk rename. So I want to change the current name for all of them to tab. And now we have tabs inside a navigation. And let's see how our labels are behaving. Will they be responsive once I change the name? So I know the first one needs to be dashboard. My tab resized based on the text that I've put in it. But do you see how my tabs are going outside my container? Because my parent container, the navigation, what is the auto layout set up on it? If you come here, you will see that its width is set to fixed. Its height is set to hug because it's a vertical auto layout. So naturally it's hugging vertically, but I also wanted to hug my content horizontally. So I will change the fixed width to hug content. And automatically now my container is hugging the content. What I'm saying is every time my content grows, grow along with it. So now I want a fill to be added on my navigation, which is the same blue color. So with the parent selected, I will add a fill by clicking the plus icon here. It added a white fill. I actually want it to be this navy blue color. Right now, this color does exist inside my saved colors, but otherwise I would use the color picker and select it. I want to change the text color, and rather than going manually and changing it for each tab, let's do it on the level of the container. Do you see how it says selection colors is black? This is my text. If I click on it, I can change all of them at once from black to white. That's great. Now that this happened, I can actually delete this background container for you to see things more clearly. So once again, with my navigation component selected, I want to add some rules before I change the icons. On the parent container, I want to add padding, so my text is never on the edge and my icons should never be on the edge. To be readable, it needs a certain level of padding. So to handle the padding, we've looked at this here. If you hover on it, this is where my vertical padding lives in Figma. So I'm going to add 32. Now, what if I wanted different padding between left and right? We have the option to do that. If you click on this icon here, this square icon, it says individual padding. Now you have all 4 paddings open. So if I wanted my right padding to be 24, let's say, less than what I have here, I could do that individually. But for now, I want them to be the same. Similarly with top and bottom. So let's add 32 on top. I actually don't need any padding on the bottom because I'm going to make my auto layout bigger. When it's vertical, I can drag it to the size of my page. With my container like this vertically, I can either center these tabs, I can put them on top. Sometimes you see some tabs on the very bottom, like settings tabs, but in this case, I want them on the very top. I'm happy with this. What I have to do now is change the icons. So when replacing icons in your auto layout, make sure you're replacing them with icons that have the same width. I just copied my boat icon from here and I want to paste it here. If I simply do Command V, I will be adding a layer. That's not what I want. I'm going to undo that with Command Z. With my icon selected that I want to replace, I will click Command Shift R to replace it, and it will replace it in place. And because they are the same size, they have 24 pixel width, it's still aligned. It doesn't mess my alignment. Now, suppose my width of icon was bigger. Do you see it will mess up the whole alignment? So I'm going to undo that. I will do the same for the other icons, Command Copy, and now all my icons are the same. I get to choose right now what kind of padding do I want to have between the icon and the tab. And I can see it's 27. It's slightly big. I don't need this much space. So to do it in bulk, I'm going to select all my tabs. And because they have the same padding, I can hover on it. And remember, we had multiple ways of doing this. We can either scroll horizontally right here on the input in the property panel. But as I said before, engineers have set numbers for padding and margin in their products. So most likely this is a defined reusable number. And in my case, it's going to be 16. Do you see? This looks much better. Let's see if very quickly we can change this into horizontal navigation. I'm going to select this component, Option drag to duplicate it. I'm going to click the horizontal layout. It's close. It's not exactly what I want. So let's make some minor adjustment, but that was very quick to switch your navigation. So instead of being aligned top left, I want to center it vertically within the container. Now this did not happen, even though this is the norm, because I have all these paddings that are not equal. Do you see? I have top padding on the very top, that is 32. I don't have bottom padding. So let's make sure we have the same. I'm going to make it smaller and 16 right here. This looks better. Let's see if this is responsive. So if I was on a desktop and if I drag this, is it behaving as I expect it to? To some extent. Let's revisit what's making it adjust this way. So right now, if I go inside each one of my tabs, all of them are set to fill the container. Now, what if I set them to hug? What would happen? This tab right here, schedules, let's set it to hug content. By setting it to hug, it became smaller, it shrunk, and it came closer to my right. And now it is attached to the right side of the tab bar. What if I wanted all these navigation tabs to be aligned to the right of my navigation component? What I would do is I would leave them vertically centered, but I would bring them to be aligned right. And they did not move because they're currently set to fill the container. So I'm going to select all three of them, and because they share the same property, it will allow me to change it from fill to hug. And now they all became right aligned. So to right align them, they had to be set from fill to hug. I like this. I want them to be on the right. This is more common for a navigation component because most likely I would want to add my logo right here to the left. But I don't like the space between them. If you zoom in, they're very close together. So let's add the gap. And as you can see, once I've selected this, Figma highlighted the gap in pink. Let's make this gap slightly bigger. This looks so much better. So now that we created horizontal and vertical navigation, let's get to that beautiful trick that I told you about, where you want to place something that is different from the auto layout logic. In this case, in a realistic case, if my dashboard feature was new, let's say, it didn't exist in my product before, it's very possible that I would want to add a new tag on the dashboard. So this is a new tag that I just created. I want to add this on my dashboard. The moment I drag it from outside my frame to my navigation frame, it automatically got added to the auto layout. The logic is everything needs to be aligned vertically, and it has a space in between them, which is 32 pixels. So this is following the same rule, but I don't want it to follow that rule. I want to place it right here. See, I can't even drag it. This is when we were talking about getting stuck inside auto layout. My goal is to place it right here on top of the dashboard as an indication to my user that this feature is new. But if I do this, again, auto layout doesn't allow me. So how to do this without breaking all the amazing work we've done? Because we do want the auto layout everywhere else. I don't want to detach from it. I want to keep it. Just for this new tag, I want to override it. You have the option to ignore auto layout. So if I scroll up with my new tag selected, next to position, do you see this square that is highlighted? If you hover on it, it says ignore auto layout. And when I click it, now the new does not follow the rules of this auto layout. So I can move it freely once again, and I have the ability to position it wherever I want to. And now you know how to retain auto layout and still place things exactly where you want. I hope you found this tutorial useful. And now you have a deeper understanding of Figma auto layout so you can do it right. In spite of auto layout being an amazing feature, I never use it on its own. I still use the grid because grids are very essential for horizontal layout, for vertical layout, to create components. So don't just be limited to auto layout. Learn how to use it to its full effectiveness, but also leverage grids. It will take you to the next level. If you want to learn more about grids, in this tutorial, I show you how to create your own grids and reuse them in different design files.